Friends in Recovery, the Addiction Recovery Podcast, is brought to you by Genesis House and the Friends in Recovery community, a thriving network of individuals who are fighting back against the stigma of addiction and recovery. Join your hosts, Mike the Podfather and Jersey Ed, as they break the silence and speak up about the real issues of addiction, treatment, and recovery. Friends in Recovery, the Addiction Recovery Podcast is available on Facebook, Podbean, iTunes, and YouTube, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Now, here are your Friends in Recovery.
Hey everybody, welcome to Friends in Recovery Podcast. I am the Podfather, Mike Miles.
And I am Jersey Ed.
Jersey Ed.
Yes. Coming live from
Jersey?
Jersey. No, not in Jersey. We're not in Jersey anymore.
Thank goodness.
From the studio. You got to say that.
No, you can say it.
I know.
Well,
That's a Podfather's deal.
We are here in the Sweet Studio in the lovely Beverly, Mass. with producer extraordinaire, Sweets.
Sweets.
How are you, Sweets?
I'm fantastic.
Good.
Just sitting in the background, making everything work for you guys.
Doing a wonderful job.
You were quiet last episode.
I was quiet.
I know. That was bad.
You didn't know anybody. You didn't think I wasn't even
That's
here.
right. I know.
It was like you weren't here.
Yeah.
Did you have laryngitis or something?
I was just really focused, guys. I was really focused.
You were. It was amazing what you were doing over there. The technical stuff that you were doing.
Look at my eyes.
That's right. Well, we have the satellite. We did bring the satellite over from the other studio, and the satellite dish. So it is all here. So we did some work on the satellite. So it sounds much better now.
Of course.
Good. Well, Mike, I got some business first before we start into our show. And we have a really good guest today that was set up for us. And first of all, I want to thank Genesis House for setting up this lovely new studio for us, Sweet Studio, that we can spread the message of hope every week and get everybody to listen to some of the great guests that we have and some of our interaction with them.
We do have great guests.
We do. We've been having some really good guests. If you guys are new to the show, look back on some of the old tapes. Is that the right word, Sweets? Tapes?
Sure, yeah. I mean, if you record this on tape, then yes, go back to some of your old cassette tapes.
That's right.
Video tapes.
That's right. Hey, and I got a mixtape for you after we get out of here.
Fantastic,
it's excellent. You just pop it in
all your favorite songs.
All
tell
my
me how
favorite
you feel.
80s songs.
The Archies.
Yes, yeah. So for all your
Speedwagon.
millenniums, you don't know what that is. So, anyways, if you enjoy if you enjoy what we're doing here, I don't know why you would, but if you enjoy Friends in Recovery podcast, join us for our Friends in Recovery community of support events. We hold monthly gatherings in Florida and New Jersey and Massachusetts. Check Facebook pages for updates, or check our Facebook pages for updates. Follow us on our Facebook page for updates and subscribe to YouTube. And any of the podcast catchers that are out there. Sweets, you can give us the rundown on all those podcast catchers.
iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio coming soon, Stitcher, Podbean. You pick it, it's out there.
It's out there. Just search for us and we come up, right?
That is correct.
That's it. And I did do a search the other day, and we're coming up pretty high. So that means a lot of people are listening to us. And
actually,
the message
correction.
is
Friends in Recovery is up on iHeartRadio too. So
it is.
It's everywhere.
So we're rocking. Okay, good. So that means everybody's listening. A lot of people are listening. So follow us on the Facebook page. And as always, we're always looking for future new recovery stories and professionals who are taking a fresh approach to addiction, treatment, and recovery. Reach out on our Facebook page for more information. And a lot of Facebook page stuff on there. I don't know why, but just get on the Facebook page and just kind of look for us. And Mike, I'm going to do the podcast pick of the week again.
Go right ahead.
So it's been pretty popular. I had a lot of good feedback last week from it. So I'm going to do my pick for this week that I've been listening to, Collateral Damage. And that the hosts are Mike Wilson and Maureen Kavanaugh. It addresses the impact of addiction nationwide. And Sweets, you kind of sound like that guy on that show.
I do.
Yeah, you do.
I sound just like him.
You do, yeah. And for our audience, you look like him too.
I do. I am him.
You are. Okay.
Surprisingly enough, yes.
So why don't you tote your own show there for a minute?
I definitely will. So myself and Maureen Kavanaugh, my co-host, we have we're on season 2 of Collateral Damage now, which is an ongoing conversation with guests and interviews, very similar to what you do here, in the sense that we are bringing in people who are talking about the the impact of substance use in communities, schools, police departments. We had a few on neonatal abstinence syndrome. The babies that people forget about when, they're born dependent.
Sure.
A lot of the programs that are available in the communities and a lot of people who've written books about this. So just hearing from a lot of people that have experienced or are helping to address the impact in communities.
Just on the topic of the neonatal children, I think it's very important to know. I had a son that passed away. He was 3 months old.
Oh, geez.
Back in 1977. He spent a month in Children's Hospital, and I spent a month along with his mother there on a daily basis watching the miracles being performed. And I can't imagine having a child born with an addiction. But our first lady was in Boston last week. What a disgrace! What a disgrace! And what a horrible reception she got from some of the doctors and nurses and hospital staff. Here's a woman trying to provide services and put out information to help these children.
Yeah.
And just ridiculed, just beyond belief. If you have a hatred for the president, it's one thing, but his wife is doing stuff that only is helping people with addiction. And it just it was embarrassing to watch. And if you're out there listening, you were part of it, you ought to be ashamed of yourself.
Yeah. and listen, everybody tries. It can't be one way or the other. It has to be all together. And not to get political, but we all have to unite at some point, no matter who's in there. You know what I mean?
That's right.
So, Mike, I want to real quick. I want to talk to you about something that I heard on one of the podcasts. It wasn't on collateral damage.
You're not a whistleblower, right?
No,
Did you hear something?
No.
Heard it from a friend that heard it from a friend that heard it from a friend?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, go ahead.
So the little quote goes, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Yeah. I thought that was like perfect for AA and just living life. And, if you want to go fast, I know I wouldn't be in it with you, but if you want to go far, which this is a journey, and we always talk about a journey in life, and AA and NA and recovery is a journey,
Sure, certainly is.
It just hit home, something hit home about it.
Right. We all need somebody, to do this especially try to recover on your own. You're not going to have much success, I don't believe.
Yeah.
But you got to reach out for help. That's why we're here. This is why we do what we've been doing for the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Friends in Recovery podcast, because we know what recovery is about. We have some substantial recovery, some very good recovery.
Right in this room.
We're giving back. We have over 70 years of recovery in this room.
Yeah.
Just think of that.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And
sometimes we joke around a little bit, but we have to remember recovery is about fun too. So if you're listening to this, go have fun too. It's not serious all the time. Life is not serious. We do. We have a lot of fun. Right before the show, we had a great time. We were kind of hanging out in the new studio, the green room that was built for us.
Yep.
With that lovely couch on there.
Oh my God.
And it was a great place to take a nap between episodes.
It was, yeah. Not for me. Not for me.
Just the Podfather.
Podfather had to relax.
Podfather's old. Don't forget.
That's
Podfather
right.
Seen better days.
I think the better days are to come, Mike.
I hope so. So what's going on with you, Ed? I heard you went to a podcast conference recently.
Yeah. We talked about that in a couple shows, and I learned a lot from there. And I think they were all asking for the Podfather.
Yeah, of course.
And
it's understandable.
And if maybe in the next year we'll all be able to, including Sweets, we'll all get out to the to another podcast fest, because it was excellent to listen to.
Like
and we're talking about the DC Podcast Fest, guys, if you want to check it out. It has nothing to do with recovery, but I did, like I said in the last couple of shows ago, I did meet somebody, two people in recovery there. And they just asked what what it's about, and it says about addiction. Oh, I'm a friend of Bill's. Right. So I kind of had a little meeting there. So you know what, even if you talk about this, wherever you talk about it, you can. I wear my recovery on my sleeves. You guys know that. We said it in the last show, the last 10 shows, the last 20 shows. But I wear my recovery on my sleeve, because you never know who you're going to run into. You never know when you're going to need help. Last night, Sweets asked me to go to a meeting, and I was tired as shit, and I didn't want to go out, and I was starving, and I went, and it was a really good meeting. It was what I needed last night, and it hit home. And, God works in mysterious ways.
Absolutely. I've never been to a recovery meeting where I didn't leave there feeling better than when I got there.
Absolutely.
And usually I'm in a pretty good mood. So
Yeah,
it's not like I'm a downer. I'm a happy guy.
Yep.
Life's
So
good.
so who do we have as a guest today, Mike?
Oh, we have a really very, very educated woman coming on here. I was reading her bio, and I was very, very impressed. Adrienne Loker is her name, and she's a licensed clinical social worker. And I'm going to let her tell the audience about
Let her tell her story.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Adrienne, how are you?
Hey, Adrienne, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm really interested in everything you guys are saying. I kind of want to ask you guys a bunch of questions. So thank you guys so much.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. You have quite a very extensive and very chock full of everything bio here.
Yeah, you're. It looks like you're smarter than all three of us put together in this studio.
You know what? So my professional stuff aside is less what I'm interested in, because for folks like us, it's really the personal narrative that is more important, right? And the stuff that I'm most passionate about is helping people in recovery. Because I think sometimes we get so stuck. So, I recently just left a position managing an intensive outpatient program, and it was a really powerful experience because we were a neurobiologically informed substance abuse treatment center, which really means we're working with the whole body. So not just the cognitive behavioral approach, not just motivational interviewing, but we're working with the whole body and how we store things somatically. And I recently just left there to open my own practice. I really bring with me my own personal experience. So I kind of, what you shared just really opened up some stuff with me. So I want to tell you a little bit about my bio that's not included in what you have in front of you.
Sure, absolutely.
So my personal narrative, I came to the rooms of recovery when I was 16 years old, which is really interesting because you're going through puberty as well. There's a lot of growing up that happens.
Wow.
When you get sober at 16 years old. And so, there's so much that we learn about ourselves in step work, right? There's so much that we learn, and there's so much clearing, so much cleaning up of ourselves, of our brain that happens, and so much growing up. And when I came to the field of social work, there was so much connecting to self that took place. And about 2 years ago, I took this training on eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. And are you guys familiar with this process?
No, I'm not.
The name is a misnomer. So the idea is that the way that we store, have you guys ever felt stuck with something like a behavior, and it's like, I'm just going to hand this one over to God. I'm going to say a little prayer. I'm going to do a 4-step about it. I'm going to do maybe 6 and 7 step. I'm just going to hand this guy over.
Yep.
It's like I keep repeating this. I can't get unstuck from this behavior. I can't stop being judgmental. I can't stop, no matter what I'm doing, I can't get rid of this, whatever this is, right? So I did this training 2 years ago, and what this does is this identifies where we store maladaptive beliefs about ourselves in the amygdala, that lower part of the brain. So we process information from the bottom to the top. Mm-hmm. So if we think of the brain like a house, I steal this from somebody else. We think of the brain like a house. That downstairs brain is our survival brain. So we think of our kitchen, our main plumbing, our washer dryer, everything we need to survive is in that lower part of the brain. So all of our automatic functions, our regulation of body temperature, of heartbeat, everything to survive is in that lower part of the brain, including fight, flight, freeze. Mm-hmm. So we process everything through our survival brain before it goes up to our upstairs brain. And in our upstairs brain, this is our ability to engage in perspective taking, our higher reasoning, our future orientation. All of these higher cognitive abilities are up here, right? And so when we process things from the bottom to the top, when things are really emotionally overwhelming, sometimes they don't always go to the top. Sometimes they get stuck there in survival brain. So if our guard dog, our amygdala, says, whoa, 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 this is emotionally overwhelming, you don't get to go up to the top. You don't get to sign in hippocampus, which is our timestamp. You don't get to go past there. This is emotionally overwhelming. You stay here. We never get that. We never get that timestamp. So think about somebody who has like classic PTSD, a war veteran who comes home, and they know that it's 4th of July. They know this up here in their upstairs brain. They know it's 4th of July. But as soon as they hear the fireworks, they duck for cover, right? Because they have those memories that are stored, stuck in that downstairs survival brain in their amygdala. It never signed in their hippocampus. We have emotional memories that are stored the same way. So these are called body memories or implicit memories. They are stored without language in that lower part of the brain. And so what I learned when I was training for EMDR, I was being the guinea pig for another clinician, and we were doing this benign target, and we touched on this touchstone memory for me. So touchstone memories are the memories at the very beginning of a memory network. So if this morning, I said good morning to you guys, Mike didn't say good morning back to me, and I was like, oh my God, what the hell? Mike never said good morning to me. What is going on? And Ed, it didn't bother you. You were just like, maybe you didn't hear us. And I'm over in the bathroom crying, like, oh, you didn't say good morning to me, right?
I did ask him to leave the studio after he didn't say good morning to you. So.
Right. So, for me, I have this whole memory network of I'm not good enough. It comes back to this whole I'm not good enough. People don't love me. People leave me. And you don't have this memory network of I'm not good enough. People don't leave me. So, for this particular benign target we were working on, it came back to this touchstone memory from childhood. I was like, what in the world? I have done so many 4 steps on this. I've talked to friends. I've handed this over to God. I've prayed about this. I've done, I've seen therapists. Why is this here? Because the brain does not process from top to bottom. Brain processes from bottom to top. There's no neurological pathway that goes top to bottom. So we have to release from bottom to top, which is what EMDR does. We identify where it's stored within that lower part of the brain, within the amygdala. And we use what's called bilateral stimulation, meaning we are engaging both right and left sides of the body, which engages both right and left hemispheres of the brain. So there's kind of this like ping pong motion that's happening. And in that, there's this free flood of free association of memory networks. So things can be stored adaptively within the brain. So there's lots of experiential modalities that we can use. EMDR was the first taste that I had gotten for myself that there is depth to recovery that we can have. So where my passion lies now is helping folks like us be able to get this depth sooner, rather than, for me at this point, this 15 years of sobriety, learning that, wow, we can do so much more than feel stuck for 15 years. We can get this depth immediately.
Sure. Hey, I have a quick question. When you brought up the EMDR, could you give us a layman's, so the listeners would understand? I have a girl. I also have a clinical practice for 20 years now. I have a master's social work. I have a couple licenses. But there's a woman in my office who does the EMDR therapy, and I think it is so important for our listeners to maybe just get a glimpse of what that is. So if you could give us like a layman's explanation or a bird's eye view of what EMDR would be.
Yeah, how you maybe explain it to your client when they're sitting in front of you saying, EMDR. I mean, because we're clinical, we know.
So what I say to folks is that this is like a conscious simulation of REM sleep. So when you're really stressed, you had a bad day, you go to sleep, you might have some funky dreams, but you wake up feeling refreshed. So REM sleep is kind of our way of decompressing from a really difficult day. So EMDR is kind of a conscious way of simulating REM sleep. So we know from like PTSD, people might have nightmares or insomnia. Something gets messed up within that REM cycle. And so EMDR is kind of that way of jump starting the brain's natural inclination towards healing.
We're going to take a quick break here, and then when we come back, we're going to hold that thought. We're going to come back and we'll continue on EMDR and all the other smart stuff that you know.
Friends in Recovery podcast. We'll be right back.
We'll be right back, guys.
Since 1992, Genesis House has been helping real people heal from addiction on their private recovery campus in beautiful Palm Beach County, Florida. Their family-owned program is accredited by the Joint Commission and offers detox and dual diagnosis treatment in a comfortable and confidential setting. At Genesis House, they focus on treating the underlying causes of addiction. Their comprehensive approach includes psychiatric care, individual and small group therapy, trauma healing techniques, and holistic care including yoga, massage, and animal-assisted therapy. After treatment, their clients enjoy the lifelong support of a nationwide network of Genesis House alumni. Call Genesis House today at 1-800-737-0933 to speak with someone who understands. Visit them on the web at www.genesishouse.net. It's time to start your journey to a long and successful recovery.
Hey, welcome back, Friends in Recovery podcast. We're here with Adrienne Loker, Jersey Ed, and myself, the Podfather. And before we went to break, we were talking about EMDR and
what it looks like to a client,
the properties it has, the good properties that it has, and a good explanation of what it is for listeners that might not be too knowledgeable about it.
And we do EMDR at Genesis House, and it always fascinates me because we do a lot of trauma work and a lot of PTSD with the first responders, and one of our therapists ended up doing some EMDR with a guy who had a facial tic, and after he was done with it, for the month that he was there, the guy's facial tic went almost completely away. And I don't know how this stuff works. I mean, it's like magic to me, but it's it's kind of crazy that you can do this in an outpatient setting. Is that how you're doing it?
Yeah. Isn't that amazing? There's some correlations. I mean, we store stuff in our bodies. There's been folks that I've worked with. One person that I worked with had a seizure disorder, and since we've been working together, I mean, she hasn't had seizures. So there's, I'm not a medical professional, but there's, I believe, a correlation between her trauma and seizures. There's another person that I had worked with. I wasn't treating her for insomnia, but as we were working together with trauma, she at best was getting 2 hours of sleep a night. And by the time we were wrapping up treatment together, she was getting at least 7 hours a night, at worst 5, 6. So, I mean, there's so much correlation. We have a tendency in our culture, at least for what I'm seeing locally here, we get so wrapped up in these insurance-driven models of CBT and MI, which are great models. I don't want to knock them, but we need to treat that right hemisphere too. There's so much that is stored somatically, and we have to treat the whole brain. If we don't, we're just setting people up.
Absolutely.
So, you know, I love this. So what I do in my outpatient is I offer intensive sessions. So I don't see people for 60 minutes. I see them for 90 minutes minimum. And I also offer 120-minute sessions. And that allows us enough time to really dig in to whatever the work is that we need to do. And there's some advanced training that I have within EMDR as well. So even for folks who are pretty significantly dissociative, so it was always previously thought that if somebody was dissociative, you do not use EMDR until they're stable. But how do you get somebody stable who's dissociative? And so it's pretty fantastic that there is techniques now that you can use EMDR to stabilize someone with dissociation, and then be able to use standard EMDR protocol to address their early traumas as well. And then, of course, I combine it with ego state therapy, which is we're looking at these different parts of self that are in conflict as well. So again, looking back at when we're feeling stuck with something. So if we're thinking about, times where, gosh, I really feel, I really feel childish for being upset about this, well, yeah, that's probably because you have this state-dependent childhood memory. And so let's honor that. And sometimes, especially what I notice within 12-step rooms, is we have a tendency to carry on emotional phobia with, some of the comments that we make, like, anger is the luxury of other men. Well, no, anger is a human emotion. We're never going to be spiritually fit enough to outgrow it.
No, it's what we do and how we channel our anger and all of our emotions. That's the important piece of it. What's you were talking about, childhood trauma. What's the age group that you normally would you treat a child with EMDR? Because some children are traumatized very, very young in life. And what if you have a 10-year-old or something that has a significant trauma in their life? Would you treat them with EMDR as far as that goes?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't see that young in my practice, but absolutely, there's childhood protocols. I do EMDR in my kids. I have a 5 and 7-year-old, and if there's something pretty serious that happens, I'll sit them on my lap and tap on the side of them and do different protocols with them. And it's nice. I mean, there's recent events protocols, so especially for the work that you guys are doing with first responders, if there's something that happens within the year, you can clear it up so that people can avoid developing PTSD. It's a pretty powerful approach.
Now the PTSD and all this, it can almost clear it up. Is that correct? If you do it, if you keep doing it and kind of keep it going.
I mean, immediately.
Yeah.
Recently, I treated somebody who had pretty significant PTSD symptoms from 9/11. Was there at 9/11, and had PTSD for, the 18 years following. And we met for a 45-minute session and cleared it up in that one session.
Wow, that's amazing.
That is.
It's so good hearing this. Med providers. Obviously, it doesn't look like you're a med provider, but I'm talking more with addiction. So you've been in practice for a while. When you have somebody with a severe addiction, say to opioids, do you recommend med providers? Do you send them to med providers, or is that something out of your realm?
You mean in terms of like it for Suboxone, methadone?
Yes.
Or even medication therapy along with EMDR. Is that something that you would suggest?
Absolutely. So what I tell folks, depending on what's going on, there's some people who are so opposed to medication because they just really want to handle everything organically. So I try to be respectful with where they fall. But sometimes if the symptoms are so severe, I let them know, it wouldn't hurt to get a psychiatric consult.
Right.
There are some excellent providers that I work concurrently with. And I just let them know that as we do this work, your needs for medication are going to change. They're going to change depending on post-acute withdrawal. That is up and down for the first 2 years of sobriety. And they're also going to change depending on trauma responses, what we're doing, the work that we're doing. So absolutely, I 100% believe in working collaboratively with a trauma-informed psychiatrist.
It's good to hear. Yeah. A lot of people I find in early recovery, it's almost like they're hanging on for dear life, and if they can get instant relief from a Suboxone or Subutex, where they don't have the cravings and the ill feelings, physical ill feelings, that also quells the psychological disturbance as well, because now they have something, they're going to have it every day. As you know, the rituals of buying drugs, getting drugs, breaking them up, storing them, playing with them, looking at them, counting them, that all goes hand in hand. So I find that stress can be alleviated when somebody has a pill or a couple pills or tabs or whatever they are to fight that internal constant struggle you have when you're active. You should never have enough. I could never have enough when I was actively involved with drugs and alcohol. There was never enough. Never enough to digest. But I had to make sure that I was going to have enough for the next day or the day after. And even when I got that, I'd be worrying about future dates,
Absolutely. So I have to say this. Yo, Adrienne. Sorry, I had to say
No,
it.
you didn't have to.
But I grew up in the 80s, so I had to say it. But we have a couple minutes left here. So everything you're talking about is fascinating. And I wish we can go on for another 2 hours with this because you're a wonderful guest speaker, and the information you're giving us is great. But how can somebody contact you to get more information? How can they either make an appointment if they're in the Richmond area, I believe you're in?
Yeah. So I have a website, and on my website, I give a lot more information about what EMDR is, how to find a local EMDR clinician. I also have information about psychodrama. That's another experiential modality that I use. So the name of my company is Seeking Depth to Recovery. My website's just www.seekingdepthtorecovery.com. And on there's my email, my phone number. People can reach out. I do psychodrama retreats throughout the year, so if people can't get in individually, they can always sign up for those, and that's for professionals or for clients. But there's excellent EMDR clinicians throughout the U.S.
And some of our listeners aren't in recovery; they may be family members. Will you treat a person not in recovery?
Yeah.
Okay.
Trauma's where my heart is. I feel compelled to advertise myself as somebody who treats people in recovery with trauma histories because I just feel like that's an underserved population.
Yes, absolutely.
The beauty of doing these podcasts is we get to meet people, obscure people that just come out of nowhere, like yourself, and just in a 25, 30-minute conversation, the connection is just it warms my heart. I'm sure it warms Jersey Ed's as well,
absolutely.
because you're so chock full of information, and what a great opportunity to sit here and listen to you speak. It was so comforting, and boy, it's good knowing there are people like you out there, Adrienne, who have all this knowledge. Plus, you've been to the gates of hell yourself with your own addiction, and at such a young age too. It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on your recovery, and congratulations on your practice, and hopefully we'll be speaking to you soon.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It was really nice to meet you guys.
Likewise.
Thank you.
Thanks, Adrienne. Well, Mike, that was pretty interesting.
Wow, very interesting.
She's a smart girl.
Yeah, she sure is.
I actually had to listen to this show and really listen to what she was saying. I'm like, I was writing notes down. I barely write notes. I'm like, geez, I got to say something now. She's like way too smart for me. But
I can't wait to look up her webpage because you know, when you sit across from people, for a living and try to glean the information they're going through, and we want to help. As a cop, you help immediately. You have 8 hours, you're an 8-hour shift, you go to a call, you try to solve it, you get limited time. But as a therapist, you see these people week after week after week, and you have to have some progress. And if you don't have the right tools or the right ability to help these people, you feel like you're failing them. I do anyway.
Yeah. Well, you know what? That's what she was talking about with the stay stuck. How many times did you think, and you, Sweets, you too, you're in this with us.
Yeah.
Excuse me. How many times were you stuck somewhere? You stayed stuck somewhere.
Absolutely.
You couldn't get
out
of
a
it.
way of life. Stuck
Yeah.
in
Long time.
absolutely.
Like either careers, whatever, and you beat your head against a wall. And I do a lot of driving by myself. You were in a cop car all by yourself alone, and when you get in your head and you start saying, okay, well, maybe I'm not good enough, or maybe I'm not, and you stay stuck at that place.
Start to feel defeated.
You do. Yeah.
Sure.
Hopeless. Hopeless.
I used to have a saying.
Word, hopeless.
I used to have a saying: when I'm by myself, I'm in bad company.
Hell yeah.
Because I would think all the crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Is this worth it? Being sober. I'm missing out on the fun times. And there was towards the end, or not even towards the end. Most of the time there was no fun times. Mm-hmm. It was all stress. The only time I felt complete relaxation is when I had what I needed for that day, maybe for the next day or the day after, and very seldom did that happen. And then I could put my head in the pillow and then deal with life on life's terms with all the other stuff going on. You know,
that piled up at that moment, and then you're in an emergency, and then you cool it all down with some alcohol and drugs, and then it's a vicious cycle.
Yeah,
you know,
it is.
Staying stuck somewhere, even now in recovery, staying stuck is tough.
Oh yeah.
You know, that's why, like I said, that meeting was perfect for me last night. That was a great meeting. It was.
Yeah, I'm glad you came.
And thanks. And but still, I mean, it's just these little things. And again, I don't push God anybody, but it was a God thing. Definitely last night was a God thing, no doubt about it. But you know, these little miracles, even miracles, maybe I should say for the listeners who don't have that higher power faith yet, but even the little miracles that are just dropped in our lives about, you know, just kind of talking and kind of getting around all this stuff.
Well, that's how I felt listening to Adrienne, you know, and I guess last couple of weeks, it just, you sit here, we read their bios, we know what we're going to talk about. We don't know these people till we see them on, you know, we're lucky we have Sweet. She brings them up. We get to see what they look like, listen to their voices, and, you know, try to glean what's behind them. She had pictures and throw pillows, a very comfy little atmosphere. You know, it's just good sitting here because I get some type of serenity out of that, knowing there are other people out there doing the exact same thing in a different way with maybe some different tools than I do, but knowing that she's doing the exact same thing.
Yeah, it's amazing. And this happens all over the country. The one thing she said about her website, and that was her website is
Seeking Depth to Recovery.com.
And she said that there was other information on there for EMDR people across the country. I mean, that's a pretty good service to throw that onto your website, because you know, I mean, she can, you know, she's going to get people hooked up all over. So Adrienne is somebody who believes in this EMDR, and I know it works because of everything that went on at, you know, everything that we do at Genesis House, because that's definitely something we do. That's a huge part of our first responders.
Sure. I've been to seminars, and it's definitely a very usable, viable tool to help people, especially with PTSD. I'm more of a dinosaur myself. You know, I've been doing this 20 years. The methods I use are obviously different, conventional, but different. But I also feel that I have a woman in my office who uses the same type of therapy that she uses, and it's very successful. And she works with a lot of young children. So I think it's...
Let me throw a question out to everybody here, because we have a couple minutes left. Has anybody had EMDR experience personally?
I haven't. And I was actually just thinking about the fact that I kind of want to try it now.
I do too. I know. I do too.
I don't necessarily feel stuck, but I mean, who doesn't have stuff? Like, even if you're not in recovery, even if you're not struck, even if you're already in recovery, you got a few years. I mean, why not, you know, just go in and see what's going on?
Exactly.
You know? I mean, I've got stuff that I'd love to get to the other side of it.
Well, and I get anxiety. We know Mike gets anxiety. This is you know, something on the show that we always talk about. I'm guessing it would probably work for anxiety, because that's something stuffed way down there that we don't know.
Sure.
You know, the anxiety comes out of nowhere. Like, we could be driving, we can be sitting comfortably in a chair, we can be on this podcast talking, I could be having a good time, and it just comes out of nowhere. I mean, it's incredibly like debilitating at points, and you know, there's times you were in a hospital. I never got it that far, but you tell stories. You had to drive to a couple of hospitals in one day to kind of knock down your anxiety.
3 years sober, I had major panic and anxiety attacks that would just, you know, they crippled me. I couldn't drive, I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep. I was afraid that if I fell asleep, I wasn't going to wake up. I mean, just think of that, you know, and nothing could convince me that I was fine. And I would have 5 of them a day, 4 of them a day. I'd end up in 3 different hospitals because I didn't believe that the doctor would say, your vitals are fine. I'm like, I'll see you later. I'd go to another doctor. I'd say, this guy's a fucking quack. My vitals are okay. I feel like I'm driving a locomotive into a lake here, you know? But I've been very fortunate.
That's a good way to explain it. You're right. Yeah.
30 years with very minimal anxiety or panic. And when I do even feel the slightest bit, I have my own method, you know, breathing and just going somewhere else. You know, and it's
and it just comes out of nowhere for all you listeners out there. I'm sure you guys are you know, and my little method is you put a rubber band around your wrist and you smack it, and you break the cycle of that thinking of whatever it is, and you think about the pain. So that works for me. And so do you get anxiety attacks, Sweets?
I don't know if I'd
panic
call them
attacks?
attacks. I do get anxiety and stress.
Yeah,
And I mean, I think you and I talked about this yesterday, that even if it's not overwhelming, I mean, we're all looking at personal growth as a part of recovery. So I mean, every day is about trying to improve on things. So sometimes when you clear out the chaos of addiction, all of a sudden you start to face life, and you don't even know how to deal with what's coming at you.
Yeah,
and so even if it's not debilitating clinical anxiety, just the stress of life, if you're in recovery and you're trying to figure out how to deal with it, I mean, every tool helps.
Yes,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Ed, this has been quite a show.
It has,
and
very informative, and everything will be in the show notes. Of course, you can get all the websites and all the information on what we just spoke about.
Right, and you can contact Genesis House if you want.
The
number's been flashing across the screen. You can call me directly, 978-459-4884, and that's Therapy Services, Mike Miles.
Yeah, and Sweets, why don't you give out your number there so we can figure out, they can call you too.
Absolutely, yeah. So Bay State Recovery Services, our 800 number is 1-800-270-2302, and the website is baystaterecovery.com.
Yep. And if you're out there listening and you might want to be part of the show, you might want to offer some of your services. If you're a clinician or somebody that wants to help people, feel free to contact us.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
We'll work something out.
Yeah, email us at help@friendsandrecoverypodcast.com, and we answer as quickly as we can. And so some emails turn into people coming on to shows.
That's right.
So you can be the next guest.
That's right. And we want to thank Melissa for lunch.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, thanks everybody. See you next week.
Stay sober, everybody.
That concludes this episode of Friends in Recovery, the Addiction Recovery Podcast. Thanks to Genesis House for supporting those on the path to recovery and for keeping this valuable resource free for our Friends in Recovery community. Follow us on Facebook for past shows and updates. If you're interested in becoming a guest on the show, email us at help@friendsandrecoverypodcast.com. If you can't get enough of Mike the Podfather and Jersey Ed, you can catch them on Answering the Call, the First Responder podcast, available on Facebook, Podbean, iTunes, and YouTube.